So I'm very pleased to introduce Ray Adams from both Niche and CashCalc, and he's going to give his perspective on those cases and the transfers more generally. Over to you.
Thanks very much, guys. Quick sound check for me. I don't normally stay in one position, but I think I have to. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I'm going to spend maybe 10 minutes just talking about me and Niche and the British Steel saga which took place last year, which I was heavily involved in. We had an FCA visit, quite rightly. Then I'm going to go through these points on the presentation then. So who am I? Well, I joined the industry in 1996, and I founded Niche then in 2005. Very proud to become chartered in 2010 and got my firm chartered as well. And working with a young, growing company, I decided technology was potentially the future. And it was interesting to see both the FCA mention that yesterday, and of course, Keith Richards mentioned that this morning, how technology is going to help us. So I decided that it was no longer about just selling products to a client and saying, Dad said you want a pension, how much do you want to put in? 50 quid, can you afford 100 quid? I wanted to actually see what that was going to give them in retirement, because nobody really wants to take out a pension. What they actually want is they want some income in retirement so they can live the life they want. So it's about the outcomes, not the input. So I looked at the technology which was available and decided that there were some really good things out there. I looked at some cash flow planning tools, and one of them had some really fantastic, colourful outputs, and I really liked them. And I tried to put myself in as a client, and it took me all weekend to do it. So I just decided it was a bit too complicated to get what I wanted. And there was another tool out there which had some really, really simple inputs, but the outputs were too basic. So I just went out and employed a young IT programmer and said, I want those inputs, those outputs, simple. So I'm not a computer expert at all, but I just surrounded myself with some people who were. And now in the Niche, under the Niche group, we've got 38 members of staff. I'm 54 next week, and we've got nobody else above 40. Most of the staff are in their 20s and 30s. So that's about 36 people, 37 people. So I launched a software tool in 2014, and you'll deliberately see I've not put that name up anywhere. I just wanted to help support this event today. I didn't want to do anything to promote it. I'd already been asked to talk today in conjunction with Rory because of my experience with the British Steel. In 2017, around the same time at the British Steel situation, I also launched another technology company, utilizing the skills I had in my offices to try and make it easier for the public to find a suitable advisor. And it all happened just a little while ago. Somebody sent an inbound email to Niche saying, these are my circumstances, can you help? One of my staff replied and said, yes, that is within our remit and our skill set. We can assist you, give us some more detail. The client then emailed back saying, fantastic, you're the 17th company I've contacted to ask that same question. And I just thought we're letting the public down here somehow in our profession because they want something and they couldn't find an advisor to do it. So maybe it was a bit of a crusade by me, but to date I put £120,000 of my own money to try and do advisor book, to try and help the public find an advisor which suits them, with 3 stated aims, which is to stop scams, help the public find a right advisor, and allow advisors to be matched with the right client. I'm just conscious, does this sound okay, guys, or is it varying slightly? It's okay? Yes? Very, very pleased that at the start of this year, an independent survey of all the cash flow tools found that the one I'd developed with my staff was the #1 in the country because we hit 7,000 users. And as you can see, 6 months later, we've put another 1,500 plus on there as well. So exactly what Keith Richards was saying this morning, technology is making a difference and is helping what we're doing. I'm sure you actually want to talk about British Steel. So, I didn't run any seminars. I didn't buy anybody sausage and chips. I didn't write any blogs on my website. I didn't tweet about it. I didn't do anything. But can you go back one slide, please? Can any of you see that sign at the top there with the dragon? Have anybody noticed that? Thank goodness for that, because I spent £5,750 putting that sign up. It's on the M4 motorway in Newport, where the tunnels are. 100,000 cars every day are stuck in a traffic jam, 3, 4, 5 times a day, glancing across saying, what's that stupid dragon? We use the space to promote things as well, and we do it completely non-commercial. At the moment, we are promoting Glamorgan Cricket, and they give us some free tickets, and we give them free tickets to our clients. And I've just spoke to one of my guys here this morning and told him to have a sign done up saying, congratulations, England, on what you've achieved. From your, we're proud of you as your neighbours in Wales. And that doesn't make a difference whether England win the World Cup or we come 3rd or 4th. I think the achievement's fantastic. So we'll have a big sign up there. Anyway, getting back to the point. I didn't buy those sausage and chips, but our phone rang like absolutely mad last year. Okay. I'm going to try and make this a bit interactive. Have a quick guess. I'm a reasonably small IFA firm in South Wales. How many inbound calls did we receive? No promotion, no marketing from steel workers. 635. Sorry? 635. I was speaking to him last night. But his memory is not quite right, it's 658. Okay, I would suggest, no matter how big your firm is, to take 658 inbound unsolicited calls is going to put a strain on your business processes. But they didn't all come in one day, they were just coming in every day. 10 a day, I'd be out on an appointment with clients, I'd come in, I'd say to my guys, what's happening? We've had 15 calls this morning. It's madness, okay? So most of you would have started reading about the British Steel situation. I guess late November, there's a firm in the Midlands which were visited on the 24th of November. I'd already closed my company's doors on the 10th of October. We had hit capacity and we could not physically talk to any more people. I did basic mathematics. I didn't need a cash flow tool to work it out. I've got this many client-facing staff. This many clients want advice. It takes us 20 to 25 hours to do a proper job on a DB analysis. Some of you may say you can do it quicker or slower. Our processes take 20 to 25 hours per case. I did the mathematics and said, we're full. Then my staff had to say, sorry, we can't help you. But you're helping my brother Bob. Sorry, we can't take any more clients. I was then concerned about client outcomes, because where were they going? And I didn't know where they were going. I just knew they were going somewhere else. Hopefully they were going to good firms, but there was a chance they would be going to less than good firms. I can take no credit at all for identifying any rogues in our industry. That falls squarely on Mr. Al Rush, who brought that to the attention of the FCA. But for me, I'd been contacting the FCA from October, and I've got exchanges of emails with the FCA saying there's a problem in South Wales. But the problem I was identifying was a capacity issue. I wasn't saying we had bad people. I didn't realize we had bad people. I just knew that the good guys couldn't physically talk to enough clients. And I suspected that there would be poor outcomes. So I was bringing that to the attention of the FCA at the end of October, and I've got exchange of emails the start of November. So we'd long since closed. We'd closed 6 weeks before any of you guys were reading about it in the paper in different parts of the country. So it was definitely a problem. Also, it was extremely personal to me because 5 of my immediate members of family are steel workers. I've got brother-in-laws, cousins, uncles who are current steel workers, deferred members, current pensioners. 16 of Nish's existing clients are current steel workers or deferred members or retirees. These are people who've been clients of ours for 5, 10 years. So this was personal to us. It's also personal in the fact that I'm very proud to be a chartered financial planner. I'm very proud to help people make decisions to change their lives. And we weren't doing a very good job because all of the press started to be very, very negative. So even though I brought this to the attention of the FCA, quite rightly, I was then selected for an FCA visit. If we saw the FCA slides yesterday, there were certain business risks, and I fall clearly into you're next to a big company which has just closed. My office is 3 miles from Llanwern Steelworks, 2 miles from Orb Steelworks, and 45 minutes from Port Talbot. We were always going to become inundated. So the FCA selected us for a visit, and I'm sure you guys want to know exactly what happened, yes? Okay. We all try and interpret what we think the FCA want, but I guess many of us don't actually experience an FCA visit. It's an interesting experience. So we supplied all information to the FCA. They told us they wanted to come for a visit, and they turned up in December for that visit. And they knocked the door, and they were very nice and very polite, and as they walked into the door, they handed us a piece of paper and said, "These files, please." Oh, hi guys, nice to meet you too. The first thing we did was to give a piece of paper. My staff upstairs produced files in their entirety for 6 cases. This is another piece of paper. I want this document and this document emailed to Canary Wharf. There are more supervisors working on it. So we've got 6 supervisors working on this for 1 day. Very interesting from your point of view. For the on-site visit, they saw our entire file. Everything, we could print it all off and give them everything. For Canary Wharf, what did I need to send? Any guesses what I needed to send, guys? Let's have some interaction. Anything else? Fact find, suitability report, nothing else. Okay? So the FCA, they could have come back and asked for more information, but on first glance, for a remote check, they want the fact find, suitability report. So think of your files, guys. If you've got processes in place and you keep the information not in one of them, it might not immediately be popped up as part of a check-in process. Okay? I'm not saying you're not able to then bring that later on to evidence what you've done, but I'm just saying for a remote case, that's what we were asked to provide. Does that come as news to anybody who are aware of that? Okay. Okay. So the FCA guys who turned up with us, 3 of them, I've read in forums, usually anonymous, that they send some kids down who know nothing and they're just ticking boxes. We've got a saying for that in Wales. It's absolute bollocks. Okay, they sent some really, really professional, intelligent, capable people down. The supervisors knew their stuff. They really, really did. They were good guys. Okay, and actually, they only wanted the same thing as me as the business owner, which is a good outcome for the client. Okay, and they were very, very interactive with us, but they knew their stuff. Don't think kids are going to turn up and tick boxes. The good thing for us is that they thoroughly checked our files remotely and on site, and we had a session at the end of the day then where they give us some feedback. And they give us some very, very positive, great feedback that we were an ethical company doing the right thing for our clients, and we cared about our clients, and we had some great communication. They identified that we could improve things as well. Okay, they picked up one thing there, which actually, coincidentally, we'd brought Rory in several months before to help us improve our processes, and Rory had said, yeah, I think your communication could improve there on this. So we took that on board. The FCA came in and identified exactly the same point. So they definitely know their stuff. Okay. So for us, we were able to sit there with a smile on our face saying, look, we've had a full audit, 6 supervisors. We've come out of it as good guys doing the best thing, but actually there's still areas that we can improve. So I was able then after that to bring Rory back in from a regulatory perspective. I then brought in John Reynolds from Expert Pensions. Any of you guys come across John? Technically, he's outstanding, so I wanted him to bring in to make sure what we were doing from a technical point of view was great. And I brought in Christopher Wells as well, who is a consultant now. Sorry about that, I've got my time running here and somebody's decided to ring me. It's our telecoms man as well, if you know him, guys. So I brought Christopher Wells in. Chris has got over 10 years experience at the FOS, and I wanted to bring Chris in with the financial ombudsman's eyes, but more importantly, the consumer's eyes. So bringing 3 different consultants in enabled us just to make those tweaks, because prior to the FCA visit, I thought Niche were providing a great service to the clients and giving great communication. After the FCA visit, I think we were probably providing really good. Okay. Now, we've tweaked our areas. I think we're providing outstanding service with outstanding communication. So hopefully that's given you a flavour of what we did with the British Steel. I'm on the panel later if you want to talk about it, but for now, I'm going to go and do a presentation about following on from Rory. Yeah, I knew the PFS were here, so I thought I'd cover that for you guys as well. So case study 1, the outcome of that was probably unclear, yes? So this is just reiterating what you've just seen, guys. Have any of you seen these sort of objectives in suitability reports or come across them? Yes? You have? You're a solicitor? Okay. I'm sure nobody in this room just has generic ones like that. And that was the reasons for suitability. So these 3 slides are just confirming what Rory's already done. So what I've done is looked at the cash flow for these clients and just input what their basic income and expenditures were. So to talk you through, the black line is their expenditure, and all the coloured bars are their different ways of meeting their income. And the grey is actually drawing on their flexi pots. So that's why it's coming up to their expenditure line in retirement to meet it. There's a spike at the start now, that was to achieve their objective. What you can see, the grey doesn't run out at any point. The clients can achieve their objectives. This year is their different savings pots. The dark green at the bottom is their current account, lighter green are various forms of savings, and then the blue is their current pensions. And as you can see, to meet their objectives in retirement of this income, they're going to draw down from their income on some basic assumptions which are in the information. They're not going to run out of money and they can achieve their objectives. Is everybody clear on that, guys? What we've now done is doing another example of transferring their pension. Can you go back 2 slides a second, please? This is where I like to walk around and point, and I can't. If you look at the bottom, they've got a thin orange line and a thin yellow line, which is their 2 state pensions. And then the thin blue line, or thicker blue line, is their DB pension. On this one, the only guaranteed incomes they've got now is their state pensions, because they've given up their DB for a bigger pot, £1 million plus pot. By most people's standard, certainly for me, that's a fairly big client. Would it be a fairly big client for most of you guys? Okay. But as you can see, the grey line never runs out. And actually, purely by coincidence, this is not me filling any figures, purely by coincidence, they run out of money at roughly the same time, drawing down their pots. They've got a big lighter blue now, which is another pension, but that's being drawn down. What we've now done is gone back and looked at their first scenario, but added in, if you look at the top, take out whole of life. So the cost of paying for whole of life, which completely replicated the value of the CETV, so this is over £1 million, whole of life, funded all their life, it makes a very, very slight difference to their money, because they would potentially run out of money at 99. But I dare say you'd be speaking to the client, to use what Al said yesterday on Sage, this is all about doing cash flow planning on a regular basis. And you'd be deciding whether they still needed £1 million of whole of life they were funding from it. So actually, the whole of life option is not just a quote in the file, tick in a box. We've actually now costed it, said the clients can afford it, And actually, it doesn't really make a material difference to their life. So if that's their real main objective, do it with the whole of life, leaving your money to your kids. So the outcomes for that, yes, they can achieve their objectives if they transfer. But actually, they can afford to achieve their objectives by not transferring. So why take the risk of transferring? So that was initially assessed as unclear. In my opinion, now putting some numbers to it, I would say it's an unsuitable. I don't know what your thoughts on it, that guys. Any opinions on that? Sorry? Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to go on to the second one, go straight to the third one now. So you've already seen this, guys. We didn't vote on the third one, did we? Somebody took me aside in between the coffee break and they thought it was an unclear. Any particular thoughts on this, guys? Unclear, unsuitable? Sorry? Unsuitable?
The official rating was my official rating was unclear.
Okay. Okay, so what we've now done is looked at the numbers with this again. Very similar type of look, although this person's black line is now 40 grand, and actually there are 4 forms of definite safeguarded income here: state pension, purple DB, and his wife had 2 forms of DB valued at £9,000 a year. So you can see that the guaranteed income in retirement comfortably above their 40 grand they want. And as you can see, even taking into account the 150 grand they want now for immediate needs, although it didn't say what the immediate needs were, they'd use up their available capital now. They would go down to just having a little blue pot left, but then in retirement they're very comfortable. Everybody clear on that graph, guys? So that's keeping their DB where it is in their current situation. We've done exactly the same now by transferring across. Now you can see at the bottom, we've still got the yellow, green, and purple, which is their 3 guaranteed DBs and state pension. And the mustard colour one at the top is where we've just set an automatic drawdown from the pot to actually hit their 40 grand a year in the most tax efficient way we can. This is what their £1 million plus pension grows to achieve the same objectives. So can we just go back to the savings over time? So there's the savings over time, getting wealthier as they get older. And this one, something similar, but at their 60s, they've got up over £1 million of liquid capital. Does this influence your decision at all on whether we're unsuitable, unclear in any way?
How are you modelling the stock market?
For simplicity here, I'm just showing a straight comparison. We're going on to that later on in the presentation, okay? Anything different there at the moment, just modelling the same numbers?
What percentage of your income are you showing as saving?
Sorry?
What percentage of the, I know one of the assumptions you can make is you can set the level of savings from current income. What are you assuming, 100 that they save all of them?
Saving it, yes. Because if they're spending more than they're saying they're spending more, you have to find out what more they're spending and input that.
Can you clarify the total number it goes up to?
Sorry?
I can't see the total number at the top line, what it goes up to.
How much money have they got at the end of
It says at the bottom here. Okay, sorry. Is that okay, guys? Do you want to go back and have a look at the other comparison again? Okay, so we're focusing in on the value, how much they've got. Have they got more on the one, on the more on the other? Is that the relevant point? Clearly on this situation, they can achieve their goals by transferring, and actually, they've got significantly more money if they transfer. Significantly more. However, they can still achieve their goals by not transferring. So what do we think of the objectives, guys? Were they good? No? Generic? In fact, we saw 3 case studies where they all had spookily the similar objectives. These are not little production line sausage factory cases. All of these cases were over £1 million. They're big cases. So what I've done is actually had a second look at this and spoke to the clients to find out what the real objectives are. So a reminder of what the objectives were before. Actually, I've gone there and said, right, Doug and Shelley, you need an immediate need for 150 grand. Can you tell me what that is? Also, you say to me you want flexibility of income. What do you mean by that? So child 21's got a name. Okay, Dave, brilliant. So Dave wants to buy a house. Let's personalize it and just talk to the client. Just find out what they mean by flexibility of income. Actually, they had loads of requirements they wanted to do. That's what the client means by flexibility of income. So Philip came on stage yesterday, the compliance guy. Is Philip still here? And he said about ABC is in the file and XYZ is in the file. All this is the DE, JKLs and all the rest in the middle as well. So if you thought I was going to come up here and give you this golden ticket, I've had an FCA visit, this is what they're looking for, guys, this is the simple answer. Actually, all I'm going to say is just good old-fashioned fact-finding, I think. So what I've now done is I've actually costed these objectives the client wants to achieve. So we've put all of them into the software. Now, instead of having their spike at the start followed by a straight line and then a straight line in retirement, we've got some spiking to achieve their costed objectives, their objectives. So can you go back 2 slides? Yeah. So one of the objectives up there is £12,000 a year for university and £30,000 house deposit. That's their Lamborghini. That's what they want to achieve. Do you want to go forward now, please? So we can sit here and judge whether their objectives are good or bad, but I'm just listening to the client about what their objectives are, what they want to achieve. This, I want flexi access to it, and I want to take tax-free cash with no income yet. It's just rubbish. Now, to achieve those objectives, actually they can't afford to do it. There's too much expenditure now to help their kids to do these things they want to do from their available resources. That's why this client wants to transfer a £1 million pension, because he and his wife know they can take an immediate tax-free cash at 250 and achieve all of these goals they've worked for. So now we've costed them in. Oops, sorry. Can you just go back one? So they can't afford to achieve their goals there. Now we're going to do the transfer, exactly the same expenditure, exactly the same as the previous one, just with more focused objectives in there, and their grey areas don't run out at all. So now they can achieve their stated objectives by transferring. So for me, this case initially started as unclear, but actually by asking the client more questions, for me, this now becomes a suitable case to transfer, in my opinion.
The model does start with the pension early if taken quotation. You can start pension early, take quotation, and recycle the pension, which you don't need for a while, into a personal pension. You end up with a reduced pension and some money that you can use for flexibility.
That's a great point, and that's something you can do, yes. Okay. It may well do, and that's why clients need personal advice. What I couldn't do here is go through 20 different examples, but you may look at the scenarios which are appropriate for your client. What I wanted to give you a flavour of here today is if you ask questions what they want and they want flexibility of income in retirement, you're asking for trouble.
Right, can I ask a question now? I don't really wait later. I just wanted to see the initial one before you got all the detail of what the income was. You know, when you're comparing staying in the scheme or moving out, and there's such a big pot potentially left on death, and we've got to clearly show it's in the client's best interest. Is it not the client's best interest at that point for me to point that out? That actually, you're going to lose guaranteed income, but actually the reality is it's so unlikely you're going to run out of income that you need to consider this. Because if I'm looking at their best interest, surely I've got to then highlight that actually that might be in their future family's best interest. Because by not highlighting it, am I leaving myself open to something?
So you mean it's their future families in the event of their death?
Yes.
Whole of life. If they've got that much spare capital, they can pay for the whole of life. These clients could achieve their stated objectives without moving. This is my opinion.
Yeah, but they can easily achieve their objectives by moving and not. I mean, it's surely there's got to be looking at going, well, actually, okay, you can achieve your objective staying, but actually by going as well, you're going to achieve it. And it's a different option, and it's an informed discussion with the client around that.
You're right. If you identify right, you can do it with a DB scheme. If you transfer out, projections are, and let's not get into wise worth of projections. You can have 2.6 million quid, which you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah.
It's a discussion to have, and you see whether or not that is. And they say, oh, that's really important. So, well, why wasn't it important before you knew you had 2.6 million quid about passing the lot? It's just about an informed discussion with the client. And if it is important, then you go, right, option one, insure it. Put the liability in the insurance company, that's what they're there for. You know, rather than put the liability on the client. And then go from there. But it is a valid point, you know, you've got to look at.
And that sounds right or wrong, do I need to bring it up?
Brilliant what you've said there, okay? So we've all come to Port Talbot for the day. Rich, how did you get here? Anybody drive here? Yeah. Yep. Anybody come by train? Yep. So we came a different way. Which one of you were right? Because your personal needs in this case was to get to Port Talbot. Okay? And the great thing is there's not one definite way you've got to do it to get to that personal need. Okay? And in fact, if you want to do some work on the train, it was absolutely right for you. I spoke to Al Cunningham in the bar last night, and he did a client visit in Monmouth or Chepstow on the way down. Could he catch the train? No. Because he can't achieve his personal objectives of getting to here and calling in to see a client on the way by catching the train. So catching the train was not right for Al. It's exactly the same with financial planning. So we can sit here and argue all day about it. That's why we sit and argue all day about it. Because it's about personal objectives for the client. There's a guy sat up there with his wife who's a steel worker, and he's now a client of Niche, and he gave my permission just to mention that. He went to see somebody else, and they've both sat in my office and looked at these cash flows. Were they helpful to you guys? Yeah. Did they help you visualize what you were trying to do? Yeah. He's a steel worker, he's a good guy. He also scrummed down as a prop for Newport for many years, so he has extra special support from me. And your back knows you've done it now for 20 years, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so we've got these personal objectives, guys. What we've then got to do, we've costed them, put them into the suitability report. So at Niche, our suitability reports are about 10, 12, sometimes 13 pages long for the most complex DB transfer. As you can clearly see now, we've actually personalized it. So this is not rocket science. You could sit here and think, why is he patronizing me? This is what we do. This is what the FCA came in and said, you've got good ethical standards, you're doing the right thing for the client. My view is anybody completely unconnected with it, the case, can pick it up, read it and say, okay, I understand what Doug and Shelley want to do. I understand what their aims are. I see why Niche have made that recommendation. What we then do, we don't put the whole cash flow into the suitability report. That's in there as an appendix. But actually, following the FCA visit and taking advice and speaking to Rory and Chris from the ex of the FOS, we decided just to pick out some salient points from it, because this formed an integral part of the discussion that we were having with clients. So we just put 1 or 2 screenshots and then just talk about it a little bit. So our suitability reports, 13 pages or less, and they normally contain 6 screenshots taking up 3 pages. And in general, if you pick the suitability report up and read it, it will contain 90% personalized information, not templated. And before you ask, it takes between 1 and 3 hours to write them. It takes the clients about 10 minutes to read them. Okay, I'm sure I'm going to be a little bit controversial because I've used deliberately deterministic returns in that cash flow, or linear returns, whatever you call them. But we can look at variable if you want to. I had a great discussion with Abraham last night about stochastic, and we can do that. So I'm just going to go and do a quick 5 or 6, maybe 10 minutes tops, looking at the live cash flow now. We can't pick up the Wi-Fi here, so one of my guys is actually going to tether to his iPhone at the moment and log into our software. Okay, so hopefully the tethering will be able to log in and use it. Okay, so we're into a system here. Can you resize that, Matt? Okay, all right. That's being resized with small icons on the side, which we'd be using on a mobile device. So ideally, I wanted it resized, but we're using a provided laptop here, and we've not gone into settings and changed it. So this is where we finished the slides, which was a deterministic return of 5% against 2.5% inflation. Everything in my software is in today's terms. None of this, you're going to have 90 grand a year income in retirement. My view is it's 40 grand now, and it's 40 grand in real terms in 20 years' time as well. So all we've done is cloned that. Do you want to go to savings pot, please, Matt? Okay. As you can see on the savings pots at the bottom, we've got a £1.3 million SIP, which has got a 5% deterministic growth. Let's just go in. We can go in if we want to and amend that, but we're going to clone the forecast now, so you've got an identical copy. We can show the clients an either or. So all we do, we in the cloned one there, Matt. Can you edit the pot on that just to show? So there's the £1.3 million pot now. And instead of having linear returns, we've got a variable return. Can you click on the view, please, Matt? So this is just the IA cautious sector, up to 35% shares, 27 years of back history. On 10 occasions, there's been negative returns. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that it's averaged 6.06. But to compare it against 5% of linear returns, what we're going to do is actually go in and add some charges. I know Parmenion were very supportive of today, and they didn't want to speak, so I'll just do a little bit of speaking for you. So we've selected a platform charge on there, and for this particular client is 0.2%. Would that be correct? Yes? We've then added in some fund charges and a DFM, and we've added an advisor charge as well. I'm sure many of you here work on fixed fees or even lower fees than that. But if you spookily add them up, they come to 1.06%. So we're going to pull the 6.06 down to a variable return of 5%. You with me on that, guys? Yep. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay, so let's go and have a look at the cash flow. So we've had a deterministic return of 5%. Now we're going to have a variable return, net of all charges, of 5%. So there's your sequencing of risk. Let's mouse above the first year, please, Matt. So his £1.3 million pension, he's had an immediate need for some tax-free cash. We capped the tax-free cash at £250,000 before any of you tell me that we've taken 25%. We only took 250,000. But actually in year 2 it's gone down to, I think in Wales we call that a kick in the goolies. Go back to the first one, Matt, please. Because as it happens, of the 27-year data, there's a 12.51% drop at first year, purely by coincidence. I think we can safely say that's a bad start. Yes? Yeah. Does the client run out of money? No. So there's your sweet concern in reverse. So if any of you are concerned about using deterministic, well, use variable then. What we could do if we want is we could throw, to answer your question, the stress tested. So we're already stress testing because that's back testing. But we had a discussion yesterday about capacity for loss, and we asked 2 different speakers how they test for capacity for loss. Did we get a good answer? No? Okay. So that is the stress testing at the moment, which just shows the 27 years of historic data. Let's clone that forecast, please, Matt, and let's do a stress test on it. And we can do a stress test live now, okay? So just go into simulate market event. There's some preset ones, or you can build your own. So we built one called the Great Pension Debate to 20% stress test. So we're just going to take a 20% extra drop in the market, okay, with 5 years to recover. Would that be fair? That does occasionally happen. Yeah, you happy with that? Sorry? It may not, yeah, but it might as well. So should we do that just before he's going to retire? So he's got another kick in the goolies, yeah? So 65? So let's, because at 65, did you see that then, guys? Can you undo that? Did you undo that then, yeah? Okay, you might have to go back to it, yeah? Sorry, that was my fault. I wanted to point out that by applying it at 65, that's when he was on one of the positive returns. So as well as having 10 negative returns, we're throwing in another 20% negative return as well. Do you want to run it again, please, Matt? And you can put several of these stress tests in if you want. Okay? So let's just apply those changes. And you can see the portfolio drop there. Does make a difference. Client doesn't run out of money. So we've just added a 20% drop. What we do at Niche, we actually take a haircut. Eugene? We take a haircut and we don't recover it. So that's what we do. We apply a certain drop, depending on what the client's attitude to risk is, and we don't allow it to recover. So we just take a straight haircut and see that how that impacts the client. Okay. You can use it however you wish. So you can do your deterministic, you can do variable, you can stress test. You may not, or you may do think that will help you with capacity for loss. It's whatever you want to do, guys. Some of you like Monte Carlo. For me, I can't get my head around it. I find it confusing, but I'm surrounded by a team of young staff, and they've said to me, no, Ray, I think this is good. I think we ought to do it. So no problem, I just pay the bills and said, yeah, let's do it. And it's now our 3rd most popular calculator. So shows that the boss don't know everything. So all we've done is we've put this into Monte Carlo. So we're going to look at 10,000 potential outcomes. All of those expenditure on the right is the grey areas where they've had to dip into their savings automatically. Okay? So we're just going to replicate a £1.3 million pot with all of the draws to replicate. And we've just said, just to be a bit controversial, we don't want this to ever drop below £1 million. Because that's a fairly big ask, and we know on the one we've done it drops to 880 straight away. Okay? So what we've done, this particular client, there's the asset allocation, but it'll be different for each one. It's run 10,000 scenarios, and in 74% of the cases, it did end up above £1 million. But actually, in over half of the cases, it dropped at some point below it. So if this is your bag, Monte Carlo, great, use it. If it's not, like me, just don't even open the program. So hopefully what we've done there, without going into huge detail, is just give you a flavor that it's not all about just linear or just variable or just stochastic. You choose your poison, guys, and use whichever you feel comfortable with, whichever way you can articulate it to the client and the client can understand it. For me, when I sat with the guys up there, we used deterministic, and they got it, understood it, because it was all about engaging the client. And talking about engaging the client, what we do at CashCalc now, we actually invite the client to do their own income and expenditure. We send them a secure link, they put it in themselves. Even the guys sat up there did it themselves. So they sit down, they put all of their expenditure they want to do. And you're probably sitting there thinking, no, I've got to sit and do a 2-hour fact find with the clients. 80.5% of the clients do their full fact find and send it back within a week. We have those stats on us. And that's not niche clients, that's nationally for CashCalc, because you've already seen we've got several thousand users. So at the moment, I've worked it out. If you just say it cuts down the first 2-hour meeting to an hour, we're probably saving 2,000 hours a month in this profession. Hopefully saving clients some fees every month, because about 2,000 clients every month are doing full fact finds. Is that okay, guys? There was no golden ticket from me. Just do a good fact find. It's all about the client. There's a bit of a CPD for today as well. If you just want to go on there, you don't have to actually sign up to anything. You can just download a CPD. All you got to do is type your name in it. I'm done, guys.